Welcome to this edition of News Today, a series where we briefly discuss and analyze important news of the day. Without delay, let's explore the headlines first. Union Minister for IT and Telecom has said that the app delisting cannot be permitted. Union Minister of Cooperation inaugurated National Urban Cooperative Finance and Development Cooperation. The government has announced geographical indication or GI tag for 10 products. The Supreme Court has asked the centre to fix hospital treatment charges for entire country. Draft Ministerial declaration has been made on cross-border remittances. Crop husbandry, agriculture inputs, and demand and supply report released by NITI Aayog. Starting with the first news. The Union Ministry for IT and Telecom has said that the app delisting cannot be permitted. Previously, Google delisted some well-established mobile applications from its platform and Android Play Store over a dispute on fee payments. Internet and Mobile Association of India, an industry association, condemned the removal of apps, and some startup founders have raised the issue of digital monopolies. Digital monopolies refer to a scenario wherein a few companies, such as e-commerce giants or big tech companies, tend to dominate the digital market in their specific domains. Now let's understand and discuss about the threats posed by digital monopolies. First is the anti-competitive practices like self-preferencing, restricting third-party applications, and mergers and acquisitions. For example, Apple restricts installation of third-party applications on iPhones. Next is the limited consumer choices, which includes anti-steering provisions of digital firms to prevent users to leave the platform and use other alternatives. One example is app stores mandating use of their own payment systems. And lastly, data privacy and security, where concentration of user data may be misused for surveillance, privacy breach, and targeted marketing. Now let's have a look at the recommendations on the basis of Standing Committee on Finance Report 2022. Categorizing leading players in digital markets as systematically important digital intermediaries and subject them to specific ex-ante provisions to ensure fair competition. It also recommended enactment of Digital Competition Act and strengthen Competition Commission of India. Now let's also have a look at the measures taken to address issues with digital monopolies. First is the Competition Commission of India. It protects Indian markets against anti-competitive practices by enterprises. It is a statutory body under Competition Act 2002. Next is Consumer Protection E-Commerce Rules 2020 to regulate e-commerce platforms and protect the rights of consumers. And lastly, there is Digital Personal Data Protection Act 2023 to ensure data privacy and security.
Moving on to the next news. Union Minister of Cooperation inaugurated National Urban Cooperative Finance and Development Cooperation. The National Urban Cooperative Finance and Development Cooperation, or NUCFDC, will be an umbrella organization for urban cooperative banks in India and will be allowed to operate as a self-regulatory organization for the sector. Let us first start by understanding what is the National Urban Cooperative Finance and Development Cooperation. It is an umbrella organization for urban cooperative banks which was recommended by Vishwanathan Committee on Primary Urban Cooperative Banks constituted by the Reserve Bank of India. In 2019, RBI accorded regulatory approval to National Federation of Urban Cooperative Banks and Credit Societies Limited for formation of an umbrella organization for the urban cooperative bank sector. The NUCFDC is registered with RBI as non-deposit taking NBFC, and UCBs can subscribe to its capital on voluntary basis. Its objectives include to expand the numbers of credit societies and UCBs and to facilitate dialogue between banks and regulators, extend liquidity to UCBs and set up IT infrastructure for shared use of members to enable them to widen their range of services. Moving on, let us further understand about the Union Cooperative Banks. It refers to the primary cooperative banks located in the urban and semi-urban areas. It is registered as cooperative societies under either respective State Cooperative Societies Act or Multi-State Cooperative Societies Act 2002. It is dually controlled by the RBI, which regulates and supervises banking functions under Banking Regulation Act 1949. Furthermore, the State or Central Registrar of Cooperative Societies exercises supervision over managerial, administrative and other matters.
Moving on to the next news. The government has announced geographical indication or GI tag for 10 products. These include the Katak Rupa Tarakasi or silver filigree from Odisha, dating back to 3500 BCE with origins tracing from Mesopotamia to Persia and Indonesia. Bengal's Banglar muslin, a renowned handloom craft made of cotton. Andhra Pradesh's Narsapur crochet lace products introduced by missionaries, Madhya Pradesh Ratlam Riyavan Lehsun, Assam's Majuli mask and manuscript painting, Tripura's Risa textile, Telangana's Hyderabad lac bangles, and Gujarat's Kutch Rogan craft and Ambaji white marble formed from recrystallized limestone beneath the earth's crust. A geographical indication is a sign used on products that have a specific geographical origin and possesses qualities or a reputation that are due to that origin. If we talk about its international recognition, then under the Paris Convention for the Protection of Industrial Property, GI is covered as an element of intellectual property rights. It is also covered under the WTO's Trade-Related Aspects of Intellectual Property Rights Agreement. In India, GI registration is administered by the Geographical Indications of Goods Registration and Protection Act of 1999. It is used to identify agricultural, natural, or manufactured goods. It is registered by Registrar of Geographical Indications for a duration of 10 years and can be renewed. Its nodal ministry is Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade, Ministry of Commerce and Industry. It holds the significance of conferring legal protection against unauthorized use, boosts exports, and conveys an assurance of quality and distinctiveness.
In our next news, the Supreme Court has asked the centre to fix hospital treatment charges for the entire country. Let us first get to know about the happenings in the hearing. The Supreme Court, while hearing a writ petition of mandamus, directed the union government to fix hospital treatment charges to be paid by patients within the next 6 weeks. The writ of mandamus under Article 32 seeks to direct a public official or authority to perform a duty they are legally bound to perform. The petitioner sought enforcement of Rule 9 of the Clinical Establishment, the Central Government Rules 2012. This rule mandates that hospitals and clinical establishments display rates for services provided and charge fees within the range determined by the centre in consultation with the state governments. Now let us get to know about the charges that need to be fixed. In terms of affordability, the healthcare costs can be prohibitively expensive, particularly when significant proportion of population does not have health insurance coverage. The fixed charges can further bring transparency to healthcare pricing to prevent instances of overcharging, billing of discrepancies and exploitation of patients, ensuring standardization and fair competition, which will create a fairer playing field among hospitals with competition focusing on quality of care. The Article 47 directs the state to improve public health, which is the responsibility of state. Several challenges have also been faced in fixing treatment charges. Cost variability depending on location and quality of facilities. Further, fixed charges may discourage hospitals from investing in new technologies and may result in artificial market distortion and administrative burden to ensure compliance. Several initiatives have also been taken to ensure affordability of healthcare in India. Those are the Ayushman Bharat scheme, promoting health and wellness centers, and Pradhan Mantri Arogya Yojana, the national list of essential medicines to monitor prices of essential medicines. PM Bharatiya Jan Aushadhi Pariyojana, which will provide generic medicines at affordable prices.
Moving on to the next news. Draft ministerial declaration has been made on cross-border remittances. It is a joint communication from 4 countries, including India, Bangladesh, Nepal, and Sri Lanka, to the Committee on Trade in Financial Services. Let's start by first discussing the key highlights of the declaration. The declaration poses a significant socio-economic impact of remittances, especially for developing nations. 78% of remittances flows in 2023 went to low and middle income countries. Also, it reaffirms commitment to UN SDG Goal 10.c to reduce transaction costs of remittances to less than 3% and eliminate remittance corridors with costs higher than 5% by 2030. Moreover, current global average transaction costs of remittances is at 6.18%, which is more than twice the SDG target. Additionally, it instructs the Committee on Trade in Financial Services to undertake a work program consisting of efforts toward reducing the cost of remittances. Remittances generally refer to money or goods that migrants send back to families and friends in origin countries. India is the world's largest recipient of remittances, estimated at $125 billion in 2023. If we talk about the significances of remittances for India, then it is an important source of family income, increasing people's purchasing power, which drives the consumption market. Also, they are one of the largest sources of external financing and a major contributor to forex reserves. And it tends to be more stable than capital flows. Creating dependency and human cost of migrants are two major concerns associated with it. At last, now let's have a look at the Committee on Trade in Financial Services. It is a subsidiary body under the Council for Trade and Services under the World Trade Organization. Council for Trade and Services is responsible for facilitating the operation of the General Agreement on Trade and Services and for furthering its objectives.
In our next news, the Crop Husbandry, Agriculture Inputs and Demand and Supply Report has been released by NITI Aayog. Let us first start by looking at the key highlights of the report. Starting with the positives of agriculture. These are the domestic production, which sufficiently meets the demand for most food commodities except edible oils and pulses. Other than that, the agricultural exports have been rising steadily and the export basket is also changing. India, with a share of 40% in global rice exports, is the largest exporter. Coming on to the major challenges, which include the land and water resources will further shrink in future on account of their competing demand for domestic energy and industrial uses. The food production system will also come under a confluence of several biotic and abiotic pressures, including climate change and infestation of insect pests and diseases. Lastly, the deceleration in the growth of oilseeds production on account of the stagnation in their area further adds to the concern. Furthermore, India imports about 60% of its edible oil demand. To overcome these challenges, few recommendations have also been provided. Land use planning, that is evolving economically feasible cropping patterns suited to the resource endowments of different agroecological zones. Further, limit open-ended procurement of rice and wheat as it acts as a disincentive for diversification. Additionally, compensate farmers for additional surplus through a price deficiency scheme. It further promotes millet consumption and production. Few other recommendations have also been provided. Enhancing pulses production, establishing seed hub, and promoting climate-resilient technologies and practices. Moving on, let us also have a look at the initiatives by the government for crop diversifications. Crop Diversification Program, which is a sub-scheme of Rashtriya Krishi Vikas Yojana to divert the area of water-intensive paddy crop to alternative crops. Also, the state can promote crop diversification under Rashtriya Krishi Vikas Yojana with the approval of state-level sanctioning committee. National Food Security Mission. In this scheme, the Government of India supplements the efforts of state governments to encourage diversified production of crops. The place in news for today is Mauritius with its capital Port Louis. It is in news recently as Prime Ministers of India and Mauritius jointly inaugurated new airstrip and 6 community development projects at Agalega Island in Mauritius. Talking about its political features, it is an island country in the Indian Ocean located off the southeastern coast of Africa. Its nearest neighbor is French island of Reunion. Talking about its geographical features, the island is volcanic in origin and is almost entirely surrounded by coral reefs. It is designated by the IUCN as a center of plant diversity. It is also a part of the Madagascar and Indian Ocean Islands biodiversity hotspot. Its major rivers are the Grand River Southeast and Black River. Its highest peak is Piton de la Petite Rivière Noire, or the Black River Peak.
As we conclude today's main news, let's have a look at some quick updates. Government of India, Government of Tripura and Indigenous Progressive Regional Alliance and the other stakeholders signed a tri-party agreement. The agreement aims to amicably resolve all issues of indigenous people of Tripura relating to history, land and political rights, economic development, identity, culture and language. Nicaragua becomes the first Spanish-speaking nation to recognize IP or Indian Pharmacopoeia. IP is recognized as the official book of standards for the drugs being manufactured and or marketed in India. IP is published by the Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission under the Drugs and Cosmetics Act 1940 and Rules 1945 thereunder. Indian security agencies detained a vessel over suspicion of dual-use consignment. Dual-use goods are goods that can have both civilian and military applications such as chemical substances, nuclear material, etc. Dual-use items are categorized as special chemicals, organisms, materials, equipment and technologies under Foreign Trade Policy 2023. It is also regulated under Wassenaar Agreement. NASA shares a picture of the cavern cloud formed above the Gulf of Mexico and off the coast of Florida. Cavern cloud are also called hole punch clouds or fall streak holes. They are formed when planes fly through banks of autocumulus clouds. The Department of Drinking Water and Sanitation, Jal Shakti Ministry, in collaboration with the Ministry of Tourism, launched the Swachhata Green Leaf Rating Initiative for the tourism industry. By some resorts, Madhya Pradesh obtained the first 5 Swachhata Green Leaf Rating Certificate of recognition. Experts suggested the roars or calls made by Hangul during rutting indicate that their number will cross 300 this spring. If we talk about its protection status, then its IUCN status is critical endangered under Schedule 1 of Wildlife Protection Act and is covered under the National Species Recovery Program. The United Nations Environment Programme released a Global Resources Outlook 2024 report titled Bend the Trend: Pathways to a Livable Planet as Resource Use Spikes. The report sheds light on how resources are essential to effective implementation of Agenda 2030 and multilateral environmental agreements to tackle the triple planetary crisis. Latest data on World Poverty Clock showed that India has managed to bring down extreme poverty below 3% of its population. World Poverty Clock is developed by World Data Lab, a global data enterprise. It monitors global program against ending extreme poverty. Before we go, it's time to put your knowledge to test in today's segment of Test Your Learning. Thank you for joining us. We hope you have enjoyed this edition of News Today. To get the answers to today's quiz and to download the PDF of News Today, make sure to check out the links in the description below.